The Euro viral contagion has spread like a disease, infecting one country after another. And today we will discuss how Greece is beginning asset sales. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. This is the biggest news I have seen in so long. I have been waiting for this. Unfortunately, I knew it was coming. And here we are today, and this is what needs to be on the front page of every newspaper, mainstream or alternative. We need to look deeper into this because guess what? It's coming to a country near you. Let's begin with this, where we're looking at essentially what is the London stock market and what's happening, to give us an idea of what's happening in Europe here is that it's up and down. But despite the fact that the conditions are getting worse in Europe, we don't have to worry because the central banks will be there to backstop any problems. Or do we have much more to worry about? See, the stock market doesn't have anything to do with the real economy, because if your precious assets are being sold off, then what does the stock market matter? Now, what exactly am I talking about here? Well, I want to get into that, but first I just want to get a little background information. And this is out of the Telegraph. George Osborne has warned that Greece's battle with Europe's creditor powers is nearing a crunch point and threatens to detonate a fresh global crisis if mishandled over the next days and weeks. See, when it's George Osborne that says that we're going to have a new financial crisis part 2, as I like to call it, then of course it's totally fine. But if it's me who says that, or if it's any of the other individuals that you listen to say that, well, then it's just a conspiracy theory, just fear-mongering and all of the other silliness. The Chancellor said that escalating crisis in Greece is now the biggest threat to the world economy and has become a haunting theme for finance ministers and central bankers meeting in the IMF in Washington this week. And they're saying that the mood is gloomy, more gloomy now than before, and essentially looking for the date of May to be very specific on that, and I'll get into what exactly is going on in May. But for the time being, we have a crunch time, as they like to say. What is happening here is that Greece owes a large amount of money, and it isn't just at one shot. They owe definitely in different stages. They owe money to certain people, and they basically said that we are not going to pay back the IMF. We want to pay back our own people first. So this is very good. At least the rhetoric there is. However, we're running into some big troubles, and they are feeling this right now, particularly at the IMF meeting, where we know exactly what the IMF is there to do. Now, this right here is the big news, not just because of this article, but for what it stands for. This is out of Reuters. Greece's privatization agency has invited OPAP to sign a deal next week to acquire the country's sole license for horse racing betting, the first state asset sale to be completed by the new leftist-led coalition government. The agency announced in March it would proceed with the sale of the exclusive betting rights, the country's dominant gambling firm, which won the license last year after offering 40 million euros. So you can read the whole thing if you want to. However, what this does is set the precedent that you can now sell off the state assets. They have sold islands off to the Emir of Qatar. They have done this before. This isn't necessarily the first time where pieces of the country are being sold off, whether that's corporations or whether that is literally actual land being sold off to the highest bidder, essentially, which isn't very high because the country is put into debt. They're cash strapped. They're desperate. So they're willing to take less, perhaps, than what it's worth. So this is the beginning of something very big. Look at the situation in Italy, Spain, Portugal, and other countries as well, where they are indebted massively. And will they have to sell off their assets as well? Well, obviously they will. It is just a matter of time. If you think you're safe in the country that you're in, Just keep your eyes peeled because this is all happening one step at a time and it's becoming a very big problem. In my book, I wrote about this knowing specifically that this would be an issue that would come up many times. And we will look at this as the chapter on the IMF. It is particularly clear in Greece in 2011 that typically giant corporate banking and private interests stood behind the IMF measures and imposed privatization of state enterprises. So obviously I knew this would be an issue, and that's why I'm bringing it up today. The IMF's programs loot the countries, only making matters worse. This gives power to an authority which is above the government that was voted in. And exactly this is what happens when you have the IMF in the country. They want to do away with the IMF in Greece, but that's not going to be the case for the time being. And then we connect in with this article out of Bloomberg. European peers want Greece to do more to revamp its debt-burdened economy before they release another tranche of the 240 billion euro bailout program. This is going to continue on, of course. This is just one of many. And what they said further down here is Greece's so-called red lines are a refusal to cut wages and pensions and introduce new taxes or sell state assets. So they've already gone ahead and begun to sell state assets. They will, in fact, have to increase taxation. They have dipped into pension funds, and they have gone in with different schemes, and there are others even suggesting going ahead and producing IOUs in order to pay people, and this is a failed decision. Let's look at this out of The Guardian. Eurozone officials meet for further crunch talks on Greece this week amid warnings that the time is running out for the country to avoid defaulting on its debts and being jettisoned from the single currency bloc. This government that is in place currently in Greece does not want to leave the EU. However, there are many signs that they may have to, and a default would definitely risk that situation. But they're not really budging at this point, although they are really having some desperation here. So the focus is already shifting to early May when Greece is scheduled to repay almost $1 billion to the International Monetary Fund, a sum most experts say Athens will not be able to raise. And that's obvious. Depends, though, on who exactly comes in to lend them a helping hand. They don't want to pay the IMF, so I'm not sure that they will exactly be really searching very hard to find the money here, but we have seen other countries come in and purportedly able to help them. So we'll see where that goes. I'm going to move on quickly here. Out of the New York Times, we're seeing a real shift in the power that is occurring worldwide. This is all connected in because of the IMF. Washington's retreat is not so much by intent, but a result of dysfunction and a lack of resources to project economic power the way it once did. Then they go on to say some more things. I just want to highlight one more point. Experts say that giving rise to a more chaotic global shift, especially toward China, even as the Obama administration officials worry it is extending its economic influence in Asia and elsewhere without following the higher standards for environmental protection, worker rights, and business transparency that have become the norms among Western institutions. So, just one point that I wanted to make here. When you have a country like China that does not have the environmental rights or workers' rights that they do in the United States and Canada, UK, or others, you have a situation where the jobs get shipped overseas. They can make a fraction, the individuals working there make a fraction of their wages. The factories can pollute the earth. They can do anything. And obviously this is good for the businesses and the corporate profits. So we can see how this will continue. So in doing so, yes, the corporation which may reside in the US, for example, is earning money overseas. They're not bringing that money back, so the economy in that country does not do better. So this is the way it works, and this goes to show you how bad things are, and Walmart is one example of that. Walmart suddenly closed 5 stores and laid off thousands of workers, and no one knows why. This is out of the Business Insider, but I'll tell you exactly why, what they're not able to state. And they essentially said that the closures could last up to 6 months and affect roughly 2,200 workers in Texas, California, Oklahoma, and Florida. What happens here is that they begin to state they're not making enough money, so they protest that, and Walmart just shuts the doors down. That's the way it works. You're not able to necessarily protest because they just shut the doors and shut you out. This is what's happening to the economy, where even Walmart is finding their doors closed. And also we have a situation here that we have a real fraud supporting the economy, real crutches here, and this happens to be out of the Daily Mail, best fixed interest rate mortgage ever. New home loan war as HSBC offers a 5-year deal under 2%. So you're looking at 1.99% interest on a 5-year fixed mortgage. So what does this tell you about the housing market? Is it really strong if you have to bring interest rates down to the lowest levels ever? No. The economy is hurting all around the world, and why not? If there are individuals out there who say that this is not an issue, so why not bring them to a historical average, let's say 7% even? What then would happen? Well, obviously we would have a major decline in the economy, that's for sure. EPA tells kids to avoid baths and asks them to check the toilets for leaks. That's right, when you have a global economic collapse that is occurring, instead of fixing the problems, what they're going to do is tell you to stop taking those baths because that is too real damaging to the environment. That's right, you're wasting water by doing so. So instead, take your kid into the shower, and that's the way that we're going to resolve this problem. When the royalty, as they call themselves, out of England decide to tell you that you need to, quote, snub the tub, they are all right, because they have their hundreds of palaces, they have their hundreds of workers working for each individual royal, as they like to call themselves. I can't even refer to them as that, but anyway, they will tell you what to do, and that's what's happening right here. The economy is never going to be fixed. This will just continue to get worse as the dominoes fall in this Euro viral contagion, which will spread throughout the global economy. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to become an insider. It's where I give out all my best intel for free, and that is available at themoneygps.com. All you have to do is scroll down to the bottom, fill in your email address, and you get occasional emails from me with good, short, concise info.